Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inquirer Live at GameDay Central. Today, we're coming to you live from the press box at Minute Maid Park in Houston, Texas, where the Phillies will face off against the Houston Astros in Game 6 of the 118th World Series. I'm Scott Lauber, baseball writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer, and I'm joined today by my fellow Inquirer sports writer, Matt Breen.
Scott, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. We're right back where we left off.
We are. So look, for for our audience watching at home, please head over to inquirer.com/Phillies Game Day for the most up-to-date reporting on the Phillies. Okay, Matt, Game 6. Let's get into it. It really couldn't be any simpler, could it? I mean, the Phillies lose again, and the season is over. This magical, mystical run that they've been on will end if they lose once more. They're on the cliff in the World Series after dropping the last two games at Citizens Bank Park. And if they pull this out tonight, they will force the first winner-take-all Game 7 in their 140-year history. Those are the stakes. They couldn't be any higher. And look, I don't think it's an exaggeration to call this one of the biggest games in franchise history. You know, it's right up there with the NLCS Game 5 in 1980. It's up there with the elimination games in 1993 and 2009. And if this goes anything like that Game 5 in 1980 did, boy, we're in for a classic. Matt, how are you feeling about this?
Good. I mean, excited to be here. It's going to be excited to see what happens tonight. But how about Game 4 of 1980, right? To get to Game 5, you had to win Game 4. And to get to Game 7, you have to win Game 6 tonight. So it's, the task seems daunting. You got to win 2 games in Houston. But you can't win 2 tonight. You got to win 1. You have to win tonight. So whatever the Phillies need to do to win tonight, I expect them to do that. Not expect them to win, but expect to leave everything out there. If it's taking Zack Wheeler out early to get the Ranger Suarez if he doesn't look good, if it's riding Zack Wheeler as long as you can, I think you need to do whatever you need to do to try to win this game. Obviously, because it could be the last game, and then you worry about Game 7 tomorrow.
Yeah, and look, they've been a resilient team all year. They really have. It's not just them saying that. You look back at the year and you look back at every bit of adversity really that they've encountered, and they overcame it, and they did it in a lot of ways by not letting the moment be too big for them, by treating it like one game at a time. And you win tonight, you play tomorrow. You don't worry about tomorrow until you get there. And that's very much going to be the mentality here in Game 6. I mean, they have to do whatever they have to do to get to Game 7. And if that means Ranger Suarez in the middle of this game, if that means, doing some things with the bullpen, being very aggressive, that's what that's going to mean. And look, I think it's not an exaggeration either to say that it's all about Zack Wheeler early on, right? The pregame intrigue before Game 6 is all about Zack Wheeler. And I'll go through it really quick. We'll recap, kind of Zack Wheeler's journey to get here and why he's such a big story before the game. He missed 31 days late in the season with forearm tendonitis and elbow inflammation. He came back. He made 3 starts before the end of the regular season. And then he dominated in his first 4 postseason starts, from Game 1 against the Cardinals right straight through to Game 5 against the Padres, the clinching game in the NLCS. He was phenomenal. He was throwing 99 miles an hour in the first inning of those games. He was kind of emptying the tank. And I know on the eve of the World Series, I asked Caleb Cotham, the Phillies pitching coach, about that. And he said the plan for Wheeler is to go as hard as he can for as long as he can. And it's been the plan for him throughout the postseason. Well, in Game 2, the hardest Wheeler could go was 96.4 miles an hour in the first inning. His average velocity was about the same as it's been all year, but it's that max velocity that we've seen throughout the playoffs that wasn't there. His command wasn't there either. He didn't last very long in that game. The Phillies lost Game 2. We wondered if it was his knee. He took a line drive off the knee in Game 5 against the Padres, but really what Wheeler said and what Rob Thompson has said is that it's late in the season. Rob Thompson has used the word fatigue to describe Zack Wheeler. He threw a lot of innings this year. He led the majors in innings last year. That's a heavy toll. And he's pitching longer into the season than at any point in his career. So, Matt, the question is, what do you think he's got left for Game 6, and what are your expectations for him tonight?
I think we'll find out right away, because it didn't take long in Game 2 to find out that he really didn't have much that night. So if they come out swinging with 3 doubles on 4 pitches again tonight, then they're going to be in trouble. So I don't know. That's the beauty of this. I don't know what Zack Wheeler you're going to get. Odds are, if I went with my gut, I think he's may have at the end of the line here, like you said, how much workload he had, not only this year, but last year. The fatigue is a real thing. But if the Phillies are going to win tonight, you probably need him to reach back into the NLCS and pump 99 in the first inning and be Zack Wheeler. And that's really the key to this. I don't see them winning this game without a really good Zack Wheeler. And I don't know. The last Zack Wheeler is, that's the freshest in my mind. It's the last impression he made on us. And it's no offense to him. I just think he's at the end of his rope here. And I think that's why the Phillies could be having a tough time tonight.
So for me, what stood out about Game 2 wasn't just the velocity in the first inning. It was also the fact that he pitched differently. He threw fewer fastballs than he throws normally. And, the fastball is his best pitch. It really is. And he's got one of the better ones in the game. And the fact that he threw it less told me that he had less confidence in it. Maybe felt like he couldn't throw it as hard as he wanted to, at least in the beginning. So he was going to try to show them other things. He threw more off speed. He threw more, he kind of tried to use more of his repertoire than going with that fastball. And it didn't fool anybody early in that game. I think also his command was off. And so when you're tired, it's not just velocity, it's also command. And in talking to JT Realmuto a couple of days ago and hearing from Zack Wheeler yesterday, they both seem to think that even if it's 96 instead of 99 in the first inning, if he's commanding it, he's going to still be able to get guys out. And the question is he going to lose some of that command? Doing some things velocity-wise that, or mechanics-wise to compensate for velocity, who knows? A lot of things could be off at this point, but I don't think they're going to wait long to see. I think you're right that if there's a hint early in the game that Wheeler can't get guys out the way he's accustomed to doing, I don't think they're going to hesitate to go to that bullpen and get there early and get, even if it means Suarez. And they'd much rather use Ranger Suarez on normal rest tomorrow than to have to pitch him tonight and then to have to go to Aaron Nola on short rest in Game 7. You have to get to Game 7, as we've said. So I think Rob Thompson will be aggressive tonight. Matt, what do you think? I mean, how much rope does Wheeler get just in terms of figuring out what he's got and whether he can get guys out with it?
Yeah, I agree. Not much. You can't give him much rope because you can't afford to lose. And if that means you have to pitch Garrett Stubbs tomorrow because you use every single person to win the night, then that's what happens. But I thought you made a good point on our walk over here to the ballpark today about the extra rest that Zack Wheeler had, and maybe that was all it needed. Maybe that was what he needed to get over that fatigue, to get that extra day, the 5 days coming off his sixth day today. So maybe that was it. That's the greatness of this game is we have no idea what Zack Wheeler is going to come out tonight. You can talk about the Wheeler how great he was in the playoffs earlier, or you can talk about the Wheeler in the World Series. And again, for the Phillies to win tonight, I can't see them winning with Zack Wheeler flaming out in an inning and a third or something like that. I think you need Zack Wheeler to be Zack Wheeler.
Yeah, so it's 6 days rest for Zack Wheeler. All along, he was going to pitch Game 6. So they were never going to bring him back on 4 days rest to pitch a Game 5, no matter where the series was, whether they were up, down, tied, whatnot. But they got an extra day for him because of the rainout on Monday back in Philly. So instead of 5 days, it's going to be 6. And I don't have the number in front of me, but if you go to Inquirer.com, there's a story about Zack Wheeler on there, and the number's in there. He's got a sub-2 ERA this season when he has 6 or more days of rest, and it's happened, I think, 5 times. So, I mean, the numbers are good. They would suggest that he might get some benefit from the extra day, from the 6th day. He didn't throw a bullpen even until Thursday. He had 4 days of nothing off a mound. I mean, he played catch and whatnot, but nothing off a mound for 4 days. So, I mean, that's the most rest that he'll have or that he could possibly have throughout the course of the season. So they've done what they can to see if they can, sort of make things a little easier for him in Game 6. But I don't think we're seeing 7 innings or something like that from him. But if they can get once through the order or, a time and a half through the order before they have to turn to that bullpen, I think they'll be very happy with it. And, I think, too, and let's go kind of inside the lineups tonight, because I think as much as we're talking about Wheeler and as much as he is the story heading into the game, I have thought all along that the Phillies are going to win the series if they hit. And they hit in Game 3. They tied a World Series record with 5 home runs in that game. They got no hits in Game 4. And then they didn't get many with runners in scoring position in Game 5. One hit. It was Segura's single late in that game. So to me, they have to hit. And, we can talk about Zack Wheeler and the bullpen all we want, but they got to get him a lead. And if they do that, they can make things much, much, much easier on themselves. Framber Valdez shut them down in Game 2. How do you look at the Phillies in terms of bouncing back offensively after two, substandard games for them?
Yeah, that's the tough part. To score a ton of runs tonight, you're going to have to do it against a guy that totally dominated you in Game 2. So I don't know. And he showed an ability to pitch in the strike zone and not be afraid to pitch in the strike zone and challenging the Phillies, and it worked in Game 2. Maybe he comes back tonight and does the same game plan, and the Phillies can hit off him. That's where this is the toughest game. I know Game 7's going to be really hard too, obviously, but to me, like, if you win tonight, then I feel pretty good about the Phillies tomorrow because, you don't know what you have in Wheeler, and Valdez was dominant in Game 2. But, whether he's touching his hair or whatever, he was dominant. He stymied the Phillies. So this is the toughest game for me of the two. Just like, we talked last time how the Braves series was the toughest series. I just think this game is really going to be really hard because of those two factors. But the last point about Wheeler, I made this point last time about Noah Syndergaard. It's a guy that's like has that competitive fire and he might not be Thor anymore, but he pitched pretty good. He did his job the other night. He gave you, one time through the order. And I think Wheeler, you know him, probably better than anybody. He's a competitive dude and he's intense. And that loss in Game 2 didn't sit well with him. So he might not throw 99 tonight, but I think he will be determined to be like, he's not going to get shelled. I think he's determined to give the Phillies a respectable start tonight. If that's a time through the order and that's the best he's got, and that's what I think you're going to get. I think you're going to get a Wheeler that can hang, can keep this team competitive, and then if the lineup can crack Valdez, and that's the route to winning this game.
So I want to take you back a little bit before you were covering baseball, before you were a sports writer, when you were just Matt from Northeast Philly. Are you calling sports radio today and screaming and yelling for Rob Thompson to shake up his lineup? Like, are you calling and saying, like, you got to get Schwarber out of the leadoff spot. You got to get Castellanos out of there. You got to shake it up. You got to do something. You didn't get any hits in Game 4. You got one hit. You got to play Stubbs. Are you doing that today, or are you sort of like, hey, I'm going to ride with what I've got. They've taken us this far, and we're going to either win or lose with the lineup as it's been.
I never called sports talk radio, besides unless I was pranking them on like a Friday night with my buddies, and we would call late at night and make up fake trades and try to trick them into believing it. Yeah. But I'm not calling sports talk radio. Maybe I call Mike Silsky's show today.
Oh, yeah, right. Yep.
But I think it's a valid point to think that you could shake up the lineup, but it's Game 6 of the World Series. What are you trying? This is what got you here. Don't start tinkering and changing things up. They're not down 3-1 and they're desperate. It's 3-2. If it was any closer, it would be 3-3, right? Like that's how close it is. It's somebody has to be up 3-2 going into Game 6. So you're right where you need to be. Keep the lineup the way it is. You have a lot of guys with track records of in the past, track records of the postseason, guys that proven they can hit. The lineup that can prove like you said, they hit 5 home runs the other night. You just trust them, and you hope that they figure out Valdez tonight, or Valdez isn't as on as he was in Game 2, and you go from there. But I would be surprised when we see this lineup today that if Rob Thompson changed anything anyway. It's just not his character to start drastically changing stuff right now. This isn't June. This was June 15th. Sure, it's the World Series.
Yeah, I mean, we could see him go with his lefty lineup, which would be Sosa at short and Bierling in center. I don't know if he'll do that or not. It's been his pattern throughout the postseason. I personally would have Bryson Stott playing shortstop tonight. I think while the hits have not necessarily been there, I think the at-bats have been really, really good all postseason long. And while I do think that there's an advantage to stacking the lineup with right-handed hitters against Valdez and hopefully, peppering the Crawford boxes over there to my left with some extra base hits tonight, I think that I can save you the call if you were inclined to call anyway, because he's not changing the top 6. It's going to be Schwarber, Hoskins, Real Muto, Harper, Bohm, Castellanos, Bohm. Top 6 are set in stone. He's not. He's just not. I mean, you look at what Thompson has done since he took over in June. You had people, especially when Harper went down, clamoring for, you got to move Schwarber down to a more of a run-producing spot. Schwarber stayed in the leadoff spot. Hoskins has stayed in the 2 spot. Even the fact that Harper, I think in the past, has tended to prefer batting third. They love him in the cleanup spot right now, and that's where he's been. So you can save the call, even though you wouldn't have called anyway. And hopefully Mike Sealski got a ton of calls today, but really they're not changing anything. And they're going to be steady. They're going to be consistent. It's the whole thing about like not projecting any kind of panic, not projecting any kind of, doing anything that's out of the ordinary. They want to keep things the status quo. And so, if there's a pick to click tonight, I think you need Real Muto to have a big night at the plate. He's been pretty. It's been pretty miserable for him since he hit the home run in game 1 and in the 10th inning. If you had a pick to click tonight, a guy who's going to kind of be the one to sort of stir the offense a little bit, who are you going with?
First, I will agree with you about playing Stott, playing Marsh. I think they're just everyday players at this point of the series. Just play them no matter who's pitching, and especially when you saw the defense didn't work anyway in game 2. That kind of burnt them without those guys. So my pick to click. It's a big stage, right? Game 6 of the World Series. Who am I going with?
You're going with Bryce Harper, aren't you?
The Harp. Yeah, I think if again you need your stars to come out. This could be another moment for Bryce Harper, and he's had obviously a great postseason already. So it's kind of a safe pick to click. But I think that's the guy. That's who you look to. He's your quarterback, and I think that's how you win this game. Is a big night from Harper. Get guys on base in front of him, so they have to pitch to him. And like I said, go from there.
I'm going to say, too, that whatever happens, they have to figure out how to score some runs without home runs. Not that this place is, like a graveyard and you can't hit a home run here, because you absolutely can, especially down the left field line into those Crawford boxes. But really, 5 home runs in game 3, and it was all about home runs in game 3. No hits at all in game 4, and then, runners on the bases and just not a big hit in game 5. And, Castellanos had some great at-bats, nothing to show for it. As I said, until Segura's single in the 8th inning, no hits with runners in scoring position. It's not always going to land on the other side of the fence. You've got to figure out ways to score and string hits together and score runs that way, especially against a curveball guy like Valdez who keeps the ball down. A sinker curveball guy, you're going to have to figure out how to score without getting the ball over the fence all the time. And so that's really, the Phillies kind of get into these, I don't know what you want to call them, like it's not a rut. It's just they get into these periods where they're very homer dependent, and that's got to end now because they're going to have to figure out other ways to score. I like your thought on Harper. I mean, big stars, big moments. No one's been bigger than Bryce Harper this postseason. And so if there's ever going to be a time for him to kind of deliver another one of those signature moments, now would be it. It's kind of unfair to ask given the fact that, all he's done is hit like 400 in the postseason and he's got 6 home runs. And of course you have the home run against the Padres that everyone will remember forever. But, they kind of need him to come through with another big moment here tonight.
Game 1, they did it without the home run. But obviously, Muto home run, but they came back from 5-0 playing the type of baseball that you're talking about. So that feels like forever ago, but that was in the same ballpark in a big game. So they've proven they can do it. This World Series, they don't need to just hit home runs. It just feels like it happened, a month ago, but it was really just a week ago.
Let's talk about some predictions, and I'm going to preface this by saying that before the series started, I picked Astros in 6, but I've also been wrong about every game so far. I thought the Phillies would lose game 1 and win game 2. I thought they'd win game 4 and lose game 5. I didn't figure Ranger Suarez would be their best starter in the series, and I definitely did not have them tying the World Series record with 5 home runs in game 3 and getting no hit in game 4. Everything I thought is going to happen has gone the other way. So if I stick with Astros in 6, which I guess I have to do, it's what I predicted in the paper. If I'm a Phillies fan, I feel good about that prediction on my part because it means that at the very minimum, they're going to a 7th game. I mean, what's your gut tell you? Because you've been a lot better at this throughout the postseason than I have.
Yeah, but not until we got on the air. Last time I talked about Broad Street Parade today and Phillies in 5. So I was good in the DS and the CS. The Magic ran out to me in the World Series. I think the Magic runs out tonight for the Phillies. Great run. Obviously you think about all the moments this October that in the surprising postseason. It hasn't just been, a game or a one home run. There's just it seemed like every player did something, and it was fun to be able to cover it with you and to be here and to watch it. And as Phillies fans, I'm sure we'll remember this forever. But I think it runs out tonight. It's a shame because Wheeler's been so great all year, and his arm has failed him. He seems to be out of gas. Valdez was awesome in Game 2. I think he's awesome again tonight. And I think we are walking home tonight through downtown Houston to a World Series celebration. That will probably be pretty lame compared to what it would have been in Philly. But I think it's going to happen tonight.
All right, let's not end it on that kind of a note, because when you're off the bandwagon, things are pretty bleak. So let's not end it on that kind of a note. Let's end it with this. And we have a few minutes here to go, so
you lost everybody.
Exactly. When you've lost Matt from Northeast, you've lost everyone.
I can talk myself to begin with if you need me to.
No, we're good. I want you to be authentic to what you think is going to happen. Let's talk about this though, and we can spend several minutes on this, and I think end it on this note, because I've been thinking about this a lot. You and I were talking about this on the walk over. The coolest part of all of this for me, and it really started to me on October 3rd, the night they clinched in Houston. And the postseason started, I think, 4 days later. I think it was October 7th in St. Louis. Today is November 5th. The coolest part about these 32 days for me has been to watch a football town like Philadelphia morph back into a baseball town for a month again. This is what I remember in 2008, 2009, and 2010. You grew up here. You remember it in 93. People who are older than both of us remember it in the late 70s and early 80s. Philly was a baseball town. And to see it come back again, right? Like, we've written this so many times. The Phillies had no idea when they left for that last road trip on September 25th if they were coming home. And they got home. And even I think when they got home, they didn't know what was going to await them. They didn't know that in the span of 18 days, people were going to kind of fall for this team. And they did. They fell for this team for a while. And I'll never forget those nights throughout the playoffs at Citizens Bank Park. It's as loud as I've ever heard a place get, including that place. So for you, I mean, what are you going to kind of take from this month of trailing the Phillies around the country here and following them through this postseason run? And what's going to stand out to you when you think about this years from now, and we're talking about what 2022, the fall of 2022 was like for the Phillies?
Yeah, I think how you said it kind of came out of nowhere, and no one really knew what to expect. I didn't know what to expect. I don't know what it would have been like if the wild card round was in Philly. I don't know if the town was ready yet. Like, that's how rapidly this happened. It just seemed like once they won that first game in St. Louis, everyone was like, turned back the clock to 2008, and it was cool to see. Like, we've seen a lot of empty ballparks, rightfully so. Not blaming anybody for not being there, but we saw a lot of empty ballparks the last few years. And to sit in the press box and look out and see the rally crowds, like, I honestly get chills thinking about it. It's just such a cool sight to see, and it brings me back to when the ballpark was the coolest place in town. And there's you just see the rally crowds spinning, and it's really neat. The place was so loud, it's crazy. Like I said last time, I think it might have been louder than it's ever been, and it happened so fast. And who knows if Alex Bowman doesn't get hit by that pitch in St. Louis, we might be talking about the Phillies offseason right now, or getting ready to watch football tomorrow. But instead, we're at Game 6 of the World Series. It's just been absolutely insane run of. Every day there's, something is going on, some great moment from a game the night before. And like I said, I do think it's over tonight, but I know I've been wrong before. Who knows what's going to happen tonight? I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see what happens. And it just, even if it ends now, it was a lot of fun to see Philly come back as a baseball town, and it's always been a baseball town. It's like a sleeping giant. They're not going to be a baseball town for a 99 loss team in 2015. we're a team that collapses every September. But if you give them something to believe in, it's a baseball town. If the Eagles were 3-13 every year, it wouldn't be a football town anymore. So, the fans are smart. Like you brought up, Reese Hoskins saying it's an honest market. It is. It's not. They're not frauds. They're not going to cheer for bums. They want a winning team, a team that like this team that really tried hard and fought to the finish in St. Louis, and that game won. What a way to win in the ninth inning! And they rewarded them with the craziest ballpark that I've seen. We've both been there at the craziest moments. But when it's bedlam at the bank, like Scott Francis said, like this isn't bedlam at Tropic Minute Maid Field, wherever we are. It was bedlam. It was freaking nuts. It was crazy. It was rightfully so, and it was cool to see. No matter what happens, there was a lot of good moments, a lot of good times.
Yeah, I told people that Game 3, the 5-homer game, was the loudest I've experienced since at least 2009 when Jimmy Rollins hit the walk-off double. I felt the press box shake that night, and I swear I felt it shaking again in Game 3, and it was pretty neat. It really was. It was pretty cool. And look, I was in St. Louis when the whole thing started. The Alec Boehm hit by pitch and the Segura, sort of like leaping like a ballerina down the first base line when he hit that ball through the right side. And we went really straight from there to Atlanta. And, it kind of caught me off guard a little bit, to come back and to see the crowd react to this team the way they did, because if it wasn't 2 weeks before that they got swept in Chicago and it was like, everyone was like, oh, they're going to blow it again. They're not going to make the playoffs, blow it up, like rebuild this team. And now we're looking at a situation where they're National League champions. They're going to get a ring on opening day no matter what happens tonight and tomorrow. They're going to get either a National League championship ring or a World Series ring. And, I think people look at this group entirely differently than they did a month ago. And that's kind of a neat thing to have seen develop, as I said, over the course of this month. So that's we're going to wrap it up from here. We've got a really kind of iconic, I think, potentially iconic Game 6 coming up here. So Matt and I are going to get ready for that. Be sure to stick around on Inquirer.com/Phillies GameDay to follow along with us as we live tweet throughout the game, post stories, game-related news, and answer all your questions and your comments. So
Zack Wheeler pitched the game of his life. Phillies win. Braves on Wednesday.
Are you switching your prediction at the last minute here?
Why not?
Wow, look at that. An end-of-show surprise from Matt Breen, switching it at the last minute. Okay, well, there you go. For Matt Breen, I'm Scott Lauber. Thanks so much for joining us today and all month long on Game Day Central, and we'll talk to you soon.